when we first started, our very first call, you would ask me, like, what are the percentages of our son playing college soccer as a senior, is late on as we started? And I said, if you remain in the only being in the regions of the Pacific Northwest only, I said the chances are not as likely. I said, if you're willing to be in another state, potentially East Coast or Midwest, that the chances would go up a lot. Your son basically within 3 weeks of us fixing his video and writing his emails correctly has 3 offers. So that's amazing. So that's great. So the bottom line is your son is going to get to play college soccer, which is super amazing. And to be honest, the schools that have shown interest in him are better than the schools in the Pacific Northwest, certainly educationally, academically for sure, which is awesome. So the reason I want to talk to you with your son is I want to get a gauge of the schools that have shown interest in us, which ones we might pursue, which ones we can go on a visit to, because I don't want your son going to a school without going on a visit. Because if he doesn't like it, that would defeat the purpose, of course. And then once we have secured, the 2 or 3 offers from schools where you're like, we would consider these, our other second job would be we can pursue other schools, but if they're below those types of schools, then we're not going to pursue them because they're below offers that we already have. So then we would put those to the side, buy as much time as we could, meaning we would say to them, I did talk to my family and I need to think about my finances, but I'm really interested, buying us time to then reach out to some other schools that maybe we want more than those schools, maybe Division II programs, we could talk about Division I programs, but maybe schools even in our region. But before we can do that, we need to know how serious we are about the schools that have shown seriousness in us. So I was asking Addison, and he said Nichols, he would consider, Pitt Brad is a really good academic school. Like, you get to graduate with a Pitt education if you go there, and New England. So I guess my question to you guys is, are we willing to go on visits to these places?
Yeah. So Gary has looked up flights and that there. So himself and Addison can basically, this weekend, they can go anywhere that,
you guys are the best. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We need to, I think, tonight just focus more on actually doing a bit more intensive research on each of those 3 schools, just to kind of see the finer details. Because we haven't, it's one of them was just emailed this afternoon, right? So we haven't really had the time to properly look into them. So I think that will kind of be the plan for tonight, to go through them in detail and see realistically which of them might be good options. Can I ask you, how does it work if he goes to see 1 or 2 of them or whatever? If he goes and then they offer him a spot, like, how does it go with kind of, as you're saying, like putting them off? How much kind of time do you generally get, or how does that work?
Good question. After a visit, you've got about 2 weeks. So That's another reason why we might say I'm not able to come until 2 weeks from now, which would be a good idea potentially too, just so we can do our fully research. But once the other balance of it is, if you wait too long to go on a visit, they'll think you're not interested and they'll move on. So it's a fine line. And to be honest, the better thing to do in these situations, it's always easier to buy time once you have the offer. Right now, you don't have the offer, technically speaking. I can tell you through the way they've written their emails that they're intending to give you an offer, but they don't want to give you an offer until you visited the school either. So, and they want to meet them in person, and like, you guys are a lovely family. They want to meet your lovely family so they know you're not a crazy parent who's going to email them every day. Those things weigh in the decision. So they're likely to make it. But the point is this: if we're leaning on which way to go to buy time, go get the offer. It's easy to buy time after that. We could say, I have training, I got sick, I have finals, I have finances. It could be a million things. But you don't have it yet. So until then, there's no time. Go as soon as possible. That's my point. Because they are talking to 3 other kids who are also discussing this, and they cannot sign everybody. So That's that piece of it. Just while I have you, your son also got a message from Wilkes. Mm-hmm. And basically he asked if he's applying. When a coach asks if you're applying, it's kind of their way of saying, if you get into my school, then we really want to talk to you. And your son has good grades. Wilkes is realistic. So I guess my follow-up question would be, I put it to you. I'll write this all out for you, but to put it on our list of schools, to go, here's another school that we should look up and consider. Now, Wilkes didn't show us as much excitement as the other schools have. So, I wouldn't say we should visit them, but something we can certainly talk about. And I just fixed your son's emails. We'll go over it today, but a couple of them they were like, we'd like to have you for a visit. And he's like, I'd love to get on a call. And I just want to be clear, they don't want to have a phone call with you. They want to meet you in person, which is great. That's obviously it's much better. Are there any other thoughts you have? Basically today with your son, I'm going to go through some of those. We can look at the schools together. You guys can relook at them tonight, and then we would try and figure out, a couple of them he's going to have a phone call with. So that will help us decide what to do also.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like my perspective is I think it would be great to have had a phone call before doing a visit, just so we could kind of see what the coach is like and what
I agree with you. And I think we talk about this in the process. There's like good questions, and then there are questions that we're going to get responses from. And then there's a balance. Now, I don't know why college coaches speak like this, because it's certainly unnecessary. But basically, when a coach says to you, I would like to have you on campus, and you say, well, I'd like to have a phone call first, they see that as hesitation. And that's the only problem. So that's why we have to kind of ourselves go, is this, and the reason coaches do it to some degree is they go, we want you to like our school for school's sake, not just because of me as a coach. Because if you only like me as a coach and you don't like the school and I don't play you, you're going to be miserable. And the coaches don't want you to be miserable. Now, I agree with you, though. It's ridiculous. Like, you should absolutely be able to have a phone call before you go fly across the country and spend $1,000. I agree with you. So we will try and do that. We will try. But I can tell you, most of the time, we'll have to go, look, I'm super interested in meeting you. If the phone call goes well, which is probably what would happen, the next step, regardless, would be a visit. It's pretty rare that you would have a phone call, and even if you got an offer, they would still say, come visit. It's possible that on the phone call, you could say, I hate this coach, I'm not going. That is possible too, but it's pretty unlikely.
Okay, got it. And this is my other question. It's just we're going to be traveling over the Christmas break period back to Ireland. Do they kind of close? Are they working intensively over the break, or do things kind of slack off during the break?
Great question. The correct answer is when school is off, they'll have time off. So we can try and coordinate it between, and they don't want you to visit when there's no school because they want you to see school. So it could help us potentially a visit in January, but given how they've emailed us, when do you guys plan to leave?
We leave on the 15th.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty tight. So we'll do the research tonight, because one of the things here's the good news. If we say to them, we want to come this weekend, and they say, well, why don't you come next week? And you say, my family, we have to return home for XYZ, then hopefully they'll be like, oh, great, just come in early January. And then we're all happy. That buys us a month. That would be perfect. So we'll try and do that for sure. I'm not going to tell you that he cannot go home for vacation. I'm not saying that. And again, I don't choose the rules, but is there some truth to some other kid is not going on vacation and going to visit the school?
Sure.
Probably. So we would just weigh that in. And I guess the addition that I would add to that is, he only has to do this once. He's never going to do it again. So if he does have to miss going home, or somebody has to miss going home, it would only happen once. We're not going to do this again. And second is, ideally that doesn't have to happen, and we'll do the other way. I just don't know. And the mini story I tell was, I was on Thanksgiving break, and a coach said to me, like, Zeb, we really need you to come. And my grandma was, older then, and was kind of going to spend time with her. And the coach was like, you better come or you're never going to play again. So I was like, okay, I'm coming. And I didn't play a minute. He sat me on the bench the whole time. And that was the deal. It was horrible. It was not nice, but that's how it goes. So anyways,
if it comes to it that there's something like really exciting that sometimes you're really interested in and they need you to see that weekend, we can change your flight or whatever to fly back a bit later, whatever. We can do that. Obviously we prefer not to do that, but if that's what it comes to, then that's what we'll do. We'll make it work.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks for that, Seb.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.